Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you very much, Michaela, for this introduction. So, in this first plenary of the day, we will talk about a human rights perspective on community inclusion from a global perspective. When I was working on the panel with the speakers, I realized that we are the Geneva crew. The Geneva crew. So, because all the bodies, the speakers will represent bodies that are all based in Geneva. Before we go into the substance of this panel, I just wanted to give a short brief on the UN system, the United Nations system. Some of you are familiar with it, some of you not very much. So just a little map to understand who are the speakers coming from. So if we had a week in front of us, I could explain you this drawing, which is the official mapping of the UN system. It's fairly complex, but I will spare you that. And I will basically just give you a very caricatural schematic. So, in the UN system, you have political bodies and processes. I'm sure you have already heard about the Security Council, the UN Security Council. That's where there is China, Russia, USA, France, and the UK making decisions on who gets bombed or not, in a very schematic way. You have the General Assembly. You have, for instance, processes like the Millennium Development Goals or the Sustainable Development Goals, which are extremely important because they shape the way the international development money is spent. And that has tremendous impact in many countries in the world. And those are the development more related bodies. And you have also human rights related bodies that are political bodies, like the Human Rights Council, which run a process called a Universal Periodic Review, where states monitor each other to see if they are good on human rights. You have special procedures, which are independent experts on some topic, like, for instance, the Special Rapporteur on Health, the Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty, on the right to water, etc. And you have, besides this political machinery, you have what we call the treaty bodies. So I'm sure you have heard about the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Did you?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. You remember yesterday the brain, the environment? So did you hear about the CRPD, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities?
Yes.
Yes, that's great. And you know that there are others, like the Convention on Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, the Convention on Economical and Social and Cultural Rights. Each of those conventions have a committee made of experts whose task is to monitor whether states are fulfilling their obligations and commitments towards those treaties. And we have today with us two members of the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. They are elected by states that have ratified conventions, but they are totally independent. Once they are elected, they are there on their personal capacity. And then you have the operational side of the UN, which can be divided into the program and funds. Maybe some of you have heard about UNICEF, for instance,
Yes.
the United Nations Children's Fund, or the UN Development Program, UNDP, and there are many others. And you have also specialized agencies like the World Health Organization, and we have today Michel Funk with us from the World Health Organization, or the International Labour Organization, which are self-standing agencies. They have their own governance. For instance, WHO has the World Health Assembly, where states are voting and deciding. And then, at global level, you have also, as you have in your country, you have civil society. For instance, the International Disability Alliance, of which I'm part, but also the World Network of User and Survivor of Psychiatry, the International Disability and Development Consortium, many global health NGOs, professional bodies, World Psychiatry Organization, whose work is actually to advocate and or support and or influence the work of all those UN bodies. So today we have representative of the three different components. We have representative of the CRPD committee with Samuel Kaboué and Diane Kingston. We have representative from special rapporteur, special procedures linked to the Human Rights Council with Alberto Vasquez, who is the research coordinator for the Office of the Special Rapporteur on Persons with Disabilities. And we have a representative of the World Health Organization. And what we try to do together is to give you a sense of how the human rights perspective on community inclusion, especially when it comes to persons with psychosocial disabilities and mental health, how is it discussed and what is the process today, what's the state of play at global level across those bodies.